Ooh, let's talk about flagpoles.
Okay. This is a argument from some people that are very pleased with themselves when a voluntarist claims that they live their life by the non-aggression principle. You get this from, I think this argument was originated by David Friedman, the son of Milton Friedman. He is what, I guess from moral philosophy point of view, you'd call him a consequentialist. And the purpose of this section of the video is not to dive into the details of consequentialism. We can save that for another day. Let me just give you the scenario. And Shepard, I don't know if you've heard the flagpole scenario before or not. Have you?
No, I want to hear it. No.
Okay. Good. So here's the scenario. You are on the balcony, and like an outside little balcony of a 20-story condo high-rise. And you're hanging out on the balcony, having a good time. And, you know, for whatever reason, you slip and fall over the railing of the balcony. And on your way down, luckily, one of the tenants on a floor beneath your condo has a flagpole sticking out with a flag on it. And on your way down, as you're falling to your death, you manage just miraculously to grab onto their flagpole, stopping your fall and saving your life. Except the owner is an asshole. And the owner sees you grab onto his flagpole on the 19th story of this high rise, and he says, "Hippity hoppity, get the fuck off my property. Let go of my flagpole right now." So what this scenario has done is given that person, given you, as you know, as you're dangling from the flagpole, given you a choice. Your principles, the non-aggression principle, not trespassing, whatever, or your life. What say you? What do you is the question. What do you do?
I would probably do something that goes against my morals, just as I would do if I came upon a loaf of bread and I was starving to death. I would probably make the choice to go against what I know is right in order to preserve my own life. That's probably what I would do. I think that I wouldn't get my bonus points at the end of the day for being a consistently principled anarchist. I would be alive. And I think that that's a kind of a cowardly response that I give, but I'm a little bit of a coward and I want to live. So I don't know that there's this whole exception when there's a potential loss of life, that then we throw everything out of the window and then it's okay to do what you have to do because it's just unrealistic. Well, no, all the morals, all the ethics that you have, the stuff you believe, the principles, they still hold true. It's just, you're going to die or are you going to do something you know is wrong? So I think I'd probably do what was morally principled, that word, wrong.
Well, let me chastise you.
Perfect.
Perfect. So the principle that you live by is not the principle of voluntarism, is not the non-aggression principle. The principle you live by is, as long as you see it as being not harmful to you, then you'll behave in one way. And the moment it crosses some threshold of harm to yourself, everything goes out the window and you'll do whatever you need to do to live. That's not really like a principled stance, right? That's just like
correct.
Okay.
That would be going against my principles if I did that. Now, if my principles were, I don't trespass on other people's property unless I'm really, really, really scared that I'm going to die, then I wouldn't be violating my principle by trespassing on their property. But I would absolutely admit that I would be violating my principles. And at the end of the day, you and all the other voluntarist anarchists could not sit around and say, Shepard was really principled today. And, no, I went against my principles.
The edge cases really illustrate first of all, this is like an edge case of an edge case. This will literally never happen ever. In some ways, it's a pointless waste of time to talk about it. But the thing that the consequentialists enjoy trying to use it for is that It's for the people that claim that they live by the non-aggression principle, when in fact they don't really. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, my counter proposal, though, not proposal, my counter to this flagpole is that I don't think it goes far enough. Like, they try and set up this edge case where it challenges people's principles, but I don't think they've taken it to its logical conclusion in a way that would really allow people to answer according to their principles. And what I mean by that is this. So, Shepard, you say that I guess you're not going to let go of the flagpole.
I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't have the guts.
So he's ordering you to get off of his property, to stop trespassing and violating his consent and property rights. And you're refusing. And granted, like, everyone in the known world of decent people would ostracize this guy, this asshole, from any polite society. No one would do business with him. No one would give him the time of day for being such an asshole as wanting to kick somebody off their property if it meant their immediate death, right? So that's not in question. This is not a realistic scenario in that way. Just wanted to make that clear. And there are free market solutions that would prevent guys like this from doing stuff like this. Very effective and visceral things that would prevent guys like this from doing stuff like this. But let's just say that we had one and this guy did. So now what? What comes next? What's step 2 in this analogy? Do you climb up the flagpole and onto his balcony? Do you shove him aside? Do you shoot him to get past him and into his house so that you can get to the front door if he refuses to get out of the way? Well, let's back up. Let's take even more baby steps. Do you punch him? Do you grab him and shove him? Do you assault him? Do you escalate as much force as you need to get him out of the way so that you can get through his house to his front door to go down peacefully? Up to and including killing him. Like, you've already stated that you don't have, you know, you're violating his rights and consent by grabbing his flagpole in a trespassing way, but how far are you going to take it? If you take it to its logical conclusion, you could have the guy standing in the door blocking your path, his wife and 5 kids playing on the floor behind him. Are you going to mow through all that human flesh to get to his front door to save your life? At what point are your principles worth your life? And I think the only consistent stance, and the one that I like to think that I would absolutely hold, I would let go. I would rather die leaving a principled legacy and a consistent rule for my kids to follow, than I would to compromise my principles at the expense of other people's rights. That's my position, and I would hope I would inspire others to be as committed. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
That's powerful. I like to think that I would have that strength. I like to think that I would do what is absolutely right. And I completely admit I don't know where that line is, because I'm trespassing, and yeah, if you keep stepping it up, I don't know where I would draw that line. You are 100% right. I don't have a good answer. I don't know. I think that I would probably not kill him or injure him badly. I bet I would shove past him to go.
Well, the idea is he doesn't allow you to shove past him. Like, the idea of the whole analogy is that he is a wall of disconsent. He does not consent to anything you do. He's not going to allow you to do it. And you're going, how far you know, people are easy to say, oh yeah, I will take a baby step into the initiation of force by remaining on the flagpole. But there is no principled difference between remaining on the flagpole and mowing through women and children to get to the front door to save your life. Like, there is no difference here in terms of consistent principle. It's worth people thinking
you're
about.
absolutely right. And if I'm hanging from the flagpole and he said, let go now, and I say, but wait, man, please, I'll give you $20 if I could. Well, if I didn't let go immediately, then I am less principled than if I had immediately let go and respected his rights by the time the last word came out of his mouth, because I'm just continuing my trespassing and I'm interrupting his TV show even longer. So yeah, and I want to clarify that what I think I would do, that's me being a bad guy. I think you are absolutely correct for what the principled decision is. I just don't know that I would have the guts to do that. And I hear the gun people always talking about how tough they are and they're not taking my guns, oh, cold dead hands. BS. They're going to take them from you and they're going to take them from me. And I know that it's silly to talk about, well, people who do talk about where their line in the sand is, that isn't their line and they shouldn't be talking about it. But I think this is similar.
Your moment to live or die was you being a responsible owner of your body and keeping it on your balcony. That was the decision point. That was the choice. You made to be negligent in a way that harmed another person. Now, obviously, the flagpole scenario, the whole point that we talk about lifeboats and flagpole scenarios is to take the harm to the extreme and the cost to the minimum. So, like, the cost of saving your life is just holding on to a flagpole where, sorry, did I say that right? The cost is your life if you don't damage somebody to a minimum amount by merely hanging onto a pole. That's the whole point of these analogies, is to challenge people's principles and philosophies. And a lot of people will not even engage on this stuff. They'll say, "Oh, I don't do lifeboat scenarios. I don't think they're useful. They're unrealistic." I love them. I think they are clarifying. They sharpen the razor edge of your ideas. And they do that specifically by taking principles to very uncomfortable degrees. And I have sort of learned to just embrace the discomfort and realize that freedom can be messy and ugly and uncomfortable, and sometimes you make mistakes, and those mistakes lead you to suffer consequences that are very uncomfortable. And this is just taking that to an extreme. You made a poor decision that led to you falling off a balcony. That does not give you the right to grab people's property or trespass on the way down. To be principled people, you have to be committed to that, I think. Otherwise, it's just, I think you're just sort of wishy-washy, like, I will not hurt an innocent even if it costs my life. That, to me, is what being principled is. And thinking about that beforehand and being prepared for those situations, I think, is important. That's what I want my life to stand for. I'm only here for a little while. That's what I want. That kind of commitment to non-aggression is what I want my life to stand for. And that's what it means at the end of the day. My mother,
and I think,
is in chat. Hi, Mom!
Awesome!
What were you about to say?
I think that comes down to the Gandhi thing that my friend and mentor, my late friend and mentor, Carl Watner, put at the top of every one of his newsletters, The Voluntarist. He would say, the Gandhi quote, that if one takes care of the means, the end will take care of itself. And the kind of the stoic thing of just trusting, I'm not going to try to predict what's going to happen to me when I let go of this flagpole. All I'm going to do is do what is right at this moment, which is respect this flag worshiper's property and let go. And that is absolutely the correct principled stance, I believe. And I know your bigger point was using these kind of analogies. I love them as well. It makes me, that cognitive dissonance, oh, I love that when I just stew on it. And then I think of a good excuse at 2 a.m. And then the next day I think about it some more and I go, nope, that wasn't a good out. I got to think of another one. Love it.
Yeah. Okay. Let me get to my mother's comment, because she gets priority, guys. I'm sorry. It's my mother. She gets the priority. So she says, if the property owner demands, everybody say hi to my mom, Cynthia Smith. She's in chat. Everybody say hi. She is awesome.
Hi, Cynthia.
If the property owner demanded you let go of his property, which was inadvertently operating as a safety net, wouldn't that be tantamount to murder, against which you'd be justified in saying no? That is an excellent, excellent question. I want to bring up another lifeboat scenario to also illustrate the answer to this. I am like a connoisseur of lifeboat scenarios. I love them so much. We should. That's what Christian. If you're watching, we have to have a lifeboat scenario section of anarchistdictionary.com and just really go in depth on all this stuff. And also, I'm looking forward to like creating video content for almost all of the topics on the page. I think that's a great
awesome.
Like every definition, everything. Oh man, I'm so excited about that project. Anarchistdictionary.com, guys. Okay, so another lifeboat scenario that maximizes harm. That minimizes cost to the property owner but maximizes harm to one of the people involved, is that of running through the forest from a bear. So, let's say you're in a forest, you're on unowned land, and a bear begins chasing you, and you are running for your life from this bear. For whatever reason, you're running in the only direction that you can. Maybe there's some rocks or some trees that are blocking some of the ways, and so you're running as quickly as you can, and you see a no trespassing sign, a private property sign, and you're running away from this bear who's about to kill you. And so the question is, what do you do? Do you choose to trespass and save your life, or do you stop at the property line and let the bear eat you, right? Same kind of scenario, just in a different format. Now, obviously, the normal answer to this scenario is almost. I don't even know of a person that would. I don't even know of a property owner that wouldn't want you to run on his property, even though he had no trespassing signs, if you're about to die to a bear. Like, that is everybody. And you live more out in the country. I'm sure that like. Even people that are very private property, don't tread on my property type of people would absolutely consent to you escaping a bear by running on their property. That's normal, expected, average human behavior. So as a runner, I think it would be totally acceptable to assume consent of the property owner when running from a bear. Now, if you find out later that this is an asshole property owner, or to elevate it to the level of the flagpole scenario, you have the owner standing next to his no trespassing sign saying, "Don't come on my property. That bear is your problem." Now we're in the same territory. Do you mow through the property owner to trespass on his property? Like, you have no right to use his property. What were you doing out in the forest where there were bears if you didn't have adequate protection against bears, or a place to run, or a way to escape if one found you? This is your problem, not his. Your negligence on a balcony or in a forest does not create a positive obligation for anyone around you to take care of you or to protect you or to save your life. That is to enslave the people around you to your incompetent mistakes. That is the most clear, visceral way I can say that. You do not get to enslave the people around you because you're incompetent or clumsy or you make mistakes. That is never an ethical answer, solution, or consistent way to live.
Yeah, and I would say that you can't make the mistake. You can't make the consequence so important or bad. And I would kind of say that's your mom was saying, well, yeah, but then your children don't have a dad and they're raised without. There can be some huge problems. But I think that for this ethical issue, this principle issue, it isn't how badly the bear is going to maul you or all the bad stuff that will happen. However bad you make that, the principle still stands. And then you have to make a choice. Am I going to stick with my principles? And if I don't, it's not like the game is over. If you do something wrong, like say, "Sorry, man," and you jump over his fence without hurting him, run across his property for 5 feet, and you disappear, okay, you messed up. You take him a steak or a cake or whatever later, and you say, "Hey, man, I apologize. I was here recently," and the community is going to be cool with you. And yeah, you violated a principle, but I know I mess up so much that, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. But the point remains, it wasn't the principal choice.
The other... yeah, so if you don't take it to the super extreme where you have the property owner standing next to the no trespassing sign, then the whole thing becomes kind of a non-issue example, right? You run onto his property and you find out later he didn't consent. You tell everybody, that this guy is an asshole and he, would have killed you if he had his way. He gets ostracized and maybe you pay him $100 for trespassing, something like that, right? That's easy. It's only when the guy is standing right there or standing on the balcony, immediately, clearly disconsenting, where you would have to, not only trespass in a minor way, but actually follow through on that violation of consent and property with more, that it becomes clear. So go ahead.
And I think Mr. Duncan in chat brings up a great question about better to be alive to offer compensation than dead. And I think that's a great point, is what is our highest value here? Is our highest value to be alive, or is our highest value to be principled? And I think the choice I made in the flagpole question, what you're saying, it's better to be alive. So I placed my life at a higher value than my principles. And I think that as we each make these choices, Patrick decides to let go. He falls, let's say he does die, and he sets a good example for people. Maybe he does more good for some people. Maybe I'm so embarrassed by violating my principles that I end up committing suicide the next day anyway. I mean, it's such a complex issue that who knows what's going to happen. But it really comes down to, what is your highest value? Is your highest value your principles? Or is your highest value your life, or your wealth, or your full stomach, or getting your rocks off if you're walking down an alley and there's a gal there and you're thinking you might want to rape her? Is that your highest value? Or do you go back to your principles and say, no, I don't do that to other human beings. That's sick, wrong, evil. I'm going to stick with my principles.
Very well said.
Yes, it's up to what one's highest value.
Very, very well said. Adam, let's go through some more of these comments. Adam says, I think expecting someone to die for touching your flagpole is an aggression. You can make an otherwise non-threatening trespass situation right through economic means or mediation. It is definitely not an aggression. Like, you are, like, the property owner is standing there minding his own business peacefully on his own balcony, on his own property. You are the trespasser onto his property. That is abundantly clear. I don't think there's a counter argument to that. Let me know if you see one, Shepard. I don't think there is a way to craft an argument to turn that into an aggression.
Yeah, it's not the person's positive right to. Yeah, there's no such thing as a positive right.
I think, Adam, if you still disagree, we have call-ins available. Send me a message on Skype, and we will call you and dial you into the show. Same for you, Mom. If you think I still have it wrong, I would love to have you on the show. Call in, or we'll call you. You have to install Skype, though. We'll talk later on that. If you ever want to call in, I will help you install Skype. Let's see. Don says property right comes after the right to life serves life. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I wouldn't, if you want to discuss it, if you guys want to be a part of this discussion, we are doing a call-in show today, so you can be part of this discussion. Let's see. Copblock says, question, flagpole owner invites you to move into his property. You move all your stuff to his place. Then he says you are trespassing to leave now without your property. Are you justified in defense?
What was the contract?
Yeah.
Hopefully you were smart.
Yeah, there's not enough details there for that one. Sorry. Let's see. Fascinating for sure. I love this stuff. Me too, Adam. Hi, Patrick's mom. Hey. Nice.
Yeah, okay. So do you guys know how we didn't tell you the whole story, how I ended up on this flagpole. The dude who owns the flagpole came up into my place and we got into an argument. He shoved me off the balcony. Yeah. So that's what happened beforehand. Now, and I don't have an answer to this, but how does that change the scenario? He put me in the situation. I don't know.
No, I think that's an excellent addition because it illustrates the other side of the principle. You are responsible for what you do to other people's property. So if you injure someone's property in a way that leaves them sort of like in a state of peril dependence, hanging off your flagpole hanging off his flagpole below that he knocked you off and onto, then he has an obligation to do everything he possibly can to minimize the damage to you, because the more damage that comes to you, the more damages that he owes. He is responsible for that situation. And this goes to abortion, but we won't talk about that today. So
we'll just keep it light and fluffy today.
Yeah. So not to get into it, but abortion is kind of the same thing. If you take actions that result in an innocent life being in peril in a state of dependence, you're responsible for that situation. You have an obligation to make sure that that life that you placed in peril comes to as little harm as possible. This is not going to be an abortion show. I have an abortion debate coming up on Sunday on this channel, by the way.
Ooh,
okay.
Awesome.
So, let's see. Moving on down. My mom says, what about the children you leave fatherless by holding to principles and letting go of the guy's property? Is that any aggression against them? No, it's my life. I can choose to end it, and that's me doing something with my property that, I mean, there is no... So, like, emotional harm is not property damage, I guess, is maybe the boiled down core principle at play there. Like, hurt feelings, even to a large degree, such as like the loss of a parent, is still not property damage. That is some kind of aggression. Like I guess what would be a lifeboat for this? I could come up with words that were so mean that it gave you PTSD. It gave you is not. I don't think precise language. Your brain in the state that it is, or that you allowed it to be, made it susceptible to hearing air vibrations that somehow caused damage in the form of PTSD to your brain. Like, if you have a brain that's susceptible to PTSD from air vibrations coming from other people's mouths around you, you might want to wear earplugs, because you're probably going to be in trouble in this world. That is an extreme version of the argument, or maybe a less extreme version of the question that she asks, which is, you know, if I chose to end my life for any reason, up to and including holding to principle on a flagpole, certainly my family and friends and kids would be emotionally wounded by that. But that is not an aggression. That's not property damage, so to speak. Shepard, did I make that clear? I'm not sure.
I think so. I think so. And I think these extreme examples are good, but if we look at things in the real world, let me tell you something that happened to me 5-6 years ago. UPS delivered, or no, it wasn't UPS. It was a shipping truck. They made a delivery, and in with that delivery were 2 cases of skill saw blades, probably worth $500 grand total. And they weren't mine. I didn't pay for them. They were misdelivered. So I tried calling the shipping company. They don't answer their phones. They don't have an answering machine. I sent an email. They never answered the email. I sent another email. I tried calling. This is in my busy season. I'm working 14 to 18 hours a day. I make a lot of efforts, and then I say, I'm just going to deal with it later. I put it on a shelf in my garage and go on about my life. And I forget about it. I found them a couple years later, and I'm like, oh, these aren't my saw blades. How do I now get them back to the rightful owner? Well, at this point, here's some of the complexities. The shipping company has already had, some insurance company has already taken care of their loss. So the shipping company is not out. The sender of the saw blades, they're not out. Oh, one other thing I did is I put it on Facebook. Hey, I had some saw blades delivered. If anybody knows contractors or whatever, please spread the word. So I made good effort. Well, I still have those saw blades in my garage. What should I do with those saw blades? Do I have a moral or a responsibility to invest more of my time and gas money, and mainly time, that's way more valuable, making efforts? And who do I give these back to? The shipping company? They're just going to hand them out to their employees. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is.
Here's a more, I don't know, more contemporary, but this is an actual real situation that I'm in as well. Not that your saw blades weren't, but this one is involving a $3,500 3D printer that was left at my house like 4 years ago. And two separate attempts were made to reach and contact the owner that originally loaned it to me to come pick it up, and no response. So at what point does he owe me for storage?
Right.
Or at what point does it become mine? This is one of the subjective areas of all property systems, is implicit abandonment. like obviously explicit abandonment is simple, but sort of implicit, unspoken abandonment is a situation that you have to deal with carefully and might be worthy of like more thought and discussion later, right?
Yeah, and who knows? At the end of that discussion, we might just auction him off to in support of Disenthrall.me. If we come to that conclusion, saw blades and a 3D printer, and I just got a check for $1,200 from some thieves, so we could auction that off too.
Nice, congratulations. Okay, Copblock says, question: when does one's ability to help become a duty? Let me think, because my first reaction is to say never. Yeah, never. That's my reaction. I mean, that's my response. Never. I cannot think of a single. So the only situation in which one's ability to help becomes a duty, and ability isn't even part of the equation, is when you are involved in causing the problem that requires somebody to need help. Like if you do something to somebody or are involved even through negligence in a way that puts somebody, like we said earlier, in peril, then whether or not you have the ability to help them, you definitely have a duty to help them. But if you had nothing to do with it, then you never have a duty to help. Now, this is one of those things. This is the difference between like really shitty aesthetic, terrible person behavior that should make everybody want to get the word out about somebody, to stop being friends with them, to stop associating, to not do business with him, to not give him the time of day, but not attack him. And the other side of the line that we're not on with this example is when you can actually attack somebody for behavior. Not helping somebody is a really asshole thing to do, depending on circumstances, but you can't attack them for it. That's not an aggression. It's not on this side of the line where attack is a thing. I guess, hopefully I answered that. Any thoughts, Shepard?
Oh, you said it beautifully.
Adam says, agree, not an aggression, but I'm not going to live in a tall building from now on. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, that's hilarious. All right, cool.
That was a good one. I feel informed. And what did you say you were going to do? Berate me or school me? Or I feel schooled and taught. Yeah, you scolded. Yes, I feel scolded. That's wonderful. I love it.
I just want to inspire people to actually think about like what principle actually means to them. And look, like, you know, I'm not sitting here talking a big game. Like, you know, if I'm ever in that situation, you know, you get into, like, what am I trying to say? And this is not me making excuses for myself or giving myself an out. I'm just saying that, like, when you're in the extreme situations, your monkey brain, your ape brain takes over, your adrenaline, your fear, your all these responses that you have less control over have an effect. And, you know, humans make bad decisions in extreme situations. And holding onto the flagpole is certainly a possibility for me. Like, you know, all of my talk and effort and thought and preparation for principle challenging situations might sort of go out the window and be out of my physiological control in that moment. That's not to say that I'm not doing the work now of sort of preparing and thinking ahead and deciding where, like Shepard said, like where my commitment is to survival or principle, which is the number one. They can be number one and number two. They're both very important, but which is the number one? And these situations highlight which one it is for us. That's why I like talking about them, and that's why I like thinking about it beforehand, because if I have it planned out in advance and I've made a decision on what I want my life and the end of my life to stand for, then I may be more able to control myself in that situation in the way that I want. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say I'm some I'm not trying to say I'm like some inhuman pure archon of thought that is not going to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. Like we're
just saying what's right and wrong. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.